Ombreing chunky glitter is one of my favorite mayonnaise to do, and at first I thought it was really hard until I figured out some easy ways that you can do it without a lot of trouble. What's up, nail crew? It's Nicole, your fellow nail obsessed DIYer. Today we are ombreing chunky glitters. We're doing that gorgeous mani that I just showed you. It would be great for New Year's Eve or anytime you want like a classy mani. And I'm also calling it my classy Steelers mani because I am a huge Steelers fan. Every time I wear black and gold, it reminds me of the Steelers, and I like get excited to wear black and gold together. We're gonna start off doing this jelly white. It's like a gorgeous milky white called Those Who Can't Wed Plan. It is officially my new favorite milky white color, and then the glitter that's going with it is called It's Heist Time. They're both from OG Dip Powder, and you guys are gonna see me spill some powder. No matter what I do, I tend to always make a mess somehow in my manis, like whether I mess up on stamping, whether I spill powder, I can't help it. No matter what I do, I seem to make a mess. Whenever you're dipping a jelly color, something that you want to be really aware of is you want to make sure that your dip base is applied really evenly. The jelly colors show a lot more because they're sheer, so you really want to make sure you apply that dip evenly. And I noticed I didn't do a great job of that on my middle finger, and that is why I ended up deciding to do the ombre on my middle finger, because I did not do a great job. I applied a little too much dip base on my middle finger, like right down the center, so you can kind of see that. Even with 2 layers, you can still see it since it's a milky color. So I decided to just do my ring finger and leave that be the one that's just the solid color and do the ombre on my middle finger. Always make sure that you brush off all the excess powder in between each dip. That's going to help your layers stay a lot more even too. Brushing off the excess dip, and then you want to trace around your cuticles. That's going to keep any of the powder stuck off your cuticles. And anytime you leave powder stuck on your cuticles, that can lead to lifting, and we definitely don't want that. If you're somebody who likes to wear their manis for a couple weeks, you don't want your dip mani to lift off because you had dip powder stuck on your skin. And the same thing actually goes for when you're top coating. You want to make sure that you don't get your top coat on your skin as well. That can lead to lifting. So anytime you get any product on your skin, not only can it lead to lifting, it can also turn into like contact dermatitis and make you a bit itchy. So I like to try to make sure that I'm really careful about keeping everything off my skin. Now, when I was going through with my layers, I decided to only do 2 layers on the middle nail since I was going to ombre. And then on my ring finger, I decided to go with 3 because I felt like since the glitter was such like a dark black and gold glitter, I wanted the jelly dip to look not so sheer on the one that was solid. So on my ring finger, I ended up doing 3 dips, and then I covered it with clear dip powder and activated it so I didn't accidentally get any of the glitters into the solid dip. Now we're going to work on this gorgeous chunky glitter. I'm a huge fan of chunky glitter. I know when you first start dipping, it can seem a little bit intimidating because like, how do you get it to work? How do you get the pieces to place everywhere? Like, how are you going to get those big glitters all over? How do people make it look so nice and even? So I'm going to give you a bunch of tricks on how I get chunky glitters to sit nice. The first thing that you want to do is you want to put a little piece of tape on the opposite hand that you're dipping on one of your fingers. I typically like to do it now on my middle finger instead of my pointer, since I'm holding my dip liquids with my pointer and thumb. The piece of tape on your finger is just to press the glitters down. That's that none of the glitters or dip liquids stick to your hands, and you can really press the glitters down well. I like to use either washi tape, masking tape, or painter's tape. I've been using this little washi tape. It seems to work really well because it fits like right there on your finger. You don't need to cut it to make it any smaller. It just like slides right there on your finger, and you can gently press down the glitters. When you're dipping with chunky glitters on your first dip, you do not want to try to pick up a ton of chunky glitters. If you do, your nails tend to look a little bit thicker. So I like to just very gently lay my nail onto the top of the glitter and just get some coverage. Then on the second dip, that's where I go in and really try to pick up more of the chunky glitter pieces. I use these little dip cups from SJ3 Designs. If you don't have these dip cups, you can use cupcake liners, but for me, I just kept dumping the cupcake liners because I'd always bump them. You know, they're like really thin and flimsy, so I'd bump them and they'd like, the dip would fly all over the place. So even though I spill some, it's not anymore because I'm bumping something. It's usually because like a dip is slipping out of my hands. You can see me working on my thumb, and when I did my second dip, I shook up the glitter that's in the little dip cup. So shaking up the glitter makes the heavier pieces come to the top, makes the thicker pieces come to the top. And I do that every time I'm dipping either chunky glitter. I actually do that when I'm dipping mini chunkies or fine glitter. I just shaking the glitter up once it's in a little container. It just allows all the pieces that you want to come up to the top, and then you can just lay your nail right on top to where those pieces are. So I literally I applied my base, I laid my nail right into where all the chunkier pieces are. If you see that like there's some space missing where you're like, okay, there's a whole bunch of space where there should be some glitter pieces, all you have to do is get either a wax tool like the one that I'm going to use, or you can use a toothpick or an orange wood stick, something like that. And I like to dab a little base on my nail just so that the glitter has something to stick to. And then I use my wax tool and just pick up a couple pieces and place them all around my nail to where they want. Like that is how easy chunky glitters can be. I know some are a lot harder to work with. Some of them just don't lay as nice as others. The ones that I am using here, this one from OG is actually lays really, really nicely. So that was not hard to get it to lay nice and flat. I only had to just like barely press down. Now we can jump into the glitter ombre. You want to apply a layer of base over your entire nail except for the very end. So if you're ombreing at the top of your nail at the tips, then you want to leave a little bit of space at the bottom of your nail without any dip base on it. I like to do that just because if I'm a little bit heavy-handed on my tapping on my ombre, then I at least know that a little bit of the bottom is not going to be covered with glitter, that it won't get all the way to the bottom. Or the same goes for when you're ombreing at your cuticle area. You just want to apply the base to most of your nail. So I start by tapping on the glitter. And for me, that always works the best to start by tapping just to see how the glitter is going to lay. Once you get a good idea of how the glitter is going to lay, then you can go in and do a couple of things. So if you see that the glitter is ombreing nicely, except right at the tip, there's not enough coverage, all you have to do is what I just did. Put a little bit of dip base on the end of your nail on the tip and gently lay your nail into the glitter. So it picks up a lot more, obviously, when you lay your nail in. So I just put a little bit of extra dip base at the end, lay my nail in, and then I get that good coverage at the tip, so it's more of the ombre effect, right? Because the ombre is like a falling glitter effect. Wherever you have the top of your ombre, whether it's at the tip of your nail or at the base, that's where you want the most concentration of glitters. And then as it goes out, as it goes down, so like this one's going down towards my cuticle, the glitters get more sparse. Since I'm working with a chunky glitter, I go through and I pour a little bit onto one of these little nail plates, and then I can go through and apply chunky glitters and some of the smaller glitters that are in there, and I apply them all over my nail to make it look like they were falling down with the ombre. That is how you do a chunky glitter ombre. I have found that this is the easiest way, by just going and placing some where you need them to be, because then it looks much more natural if you do that. It gives you the flexibility to really get your glitters where you want them to be and not have them like chunked up in one area just by placing a bunch. So it's that easy to do a chunky glitter ombre. I was really intimidated when I first started doing them. I was like, yeah, there's no way I can do this. How am I going to do this? And then when I figured out that little method of tapping first, then laying your nail in the very edge to get some more coverage of the glitter, and then placing pieces, ever since I figured that out, it's been so much easier. So I like to share those little tricks with you guys to make sure that everybody's able to do like the skills that they want. And it takes practice. I've been doing my nails for 4.5 years, and let me tell you, they did not look like this at the beginning. They didn't look even close. I would say it took me like a solid 2 years to feel like more comfortable with dipping. And now as I'm going through, I still make a lot of mistakes. You know, I'm just still learning. Like, I feel like everything is kind of a learning experience for me, which it makes it more enjoyable. Is like, okay, what can I figure out this Manny that's going to make things a little bit easier? And I like to share all that with everybody. Now, if you're still really struggling with basic dip manis, make sure you check out the first pinned comment. It's where I have the link to my Dip Nails 101, the ultimate guide to dipping your nails at home. It's over 45 pages of everything you need, from prep to application to removal, all in one place. You can print it out. It's got tons of tips and tricks, pictures, that absolutely no gatekeeping, that I give you all the information in one place. nice. Once I finished with all of my layers, I made sure I topped with clear dip powder. That's what I do regardless of what color that I'm using, whether it's a solid, shimmer, flake, foil, anything. I always make sure that I top with clear dip powder, and then I brush off the excess, I activate, wait for that to dry, and then I go through and do my buffing and shaping off camera. I did that typically off camera. I do have one video that I'll make sure I link at the end that shows how I go through and get my perfect cuticle lines, or, you know, as close as you possibly can to get beautiful cuticle lines. Then whenever I'm done buffing and shaping and working on my cuticle lines, I like to go through and wipe my nails with isopropyl alcohol before I go and top coat. You want to make sure after you wipe with isopropyl alcohol, you want to make sure that your nails are totally dry. Do not try to start doing your top coating if your nails aren't totally dry from the alcohol. The alcohol can dry pretty fast, but I usually let it dry for about a minute or two before I go in with my top coating. Anytime I'm top coating, regardless of what brand of dip liquids I'm using, I float the top coat layers over. Typically when your top coat gets contaminated, it's because of a reaction with the activator or something. So I like to make sure I float my layers over so that they don't get contaminated. And if you're still struggling with your perfect cuticle lines, make sure you check out this next video. Thanks for joining me today, nail crew.